And good evening, it's Ken Kraetzer for CaMMVetsMedia and our weekly Army football huddle. And tonight we will talk about the very tough loss for Army at Troy on Saturday night, a 1-point loss, 10-9. And also the Senior Day game on Saturday at Mikey Stadium against University of Connecticut, a much improved UConn team. And first, I just wanted to start by offering condolences to all of our friends at the University of Virginia on the terrible tragedy they had today that lost the lives of 3 of their football players in a terrible shooting, 2 others injured, and just I can only imagine a trauma down on their campus. A beautiful spot in the state of Virginia, and certainly part of the college football family. So our condolences go out to everybody at the University of Virginia, and particularly the families of the players involved. Now let's go and introduce our team, our huddle members tonight. We've got from Florida calling in Richard Miller. How are you?
Very well, Ken.
Good. And calling in from South Jersey, we've got former Army football player, member of the class of '92, Steve Shalu. How are you, Steve?
I'm doing okay.
Okay. And we've got calling in from the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama, from the class of '87, Colonel Sam Houston. Colonel, how are you tonight?
Well, it was it was a good day for a Monday. Takes a little bit of the sting off of this past weekend, but not much. But I'm all right.
Okay, I know. And calling in from Pelham, my colleague on our WVOX show did an excellent job on his report on what's happening overseas, and that is Jack McGuirk. Jack, how are you?
Doing very well, Ken. How you doing? Getting pretty cold up here in the Northeast.
Yeah. It's like instant winter down in the 30s, first time I think this year. And so let's get started with our business at hand. Didn't want to mention that 2 West Point seniors were named Rhodes Scholars today, and really congratulations to them. And so at Troy, a game Army got off to a great start. I mean, in terms of moving the ball, went out to 9-0 lead in the first half, but they could have been ahead by a much greater margin, except for a couple of fumbles, and one being on the 3-yard line in the opening drive. And then Troy coming back strong in the second half, scoring 10 points. And difference also a missed extra point and a missed field goal in the last seconds of the game, 42 yards. So let's go through it. Let's start with Steve Shalu. What was your thought on the game?
I did the coaches show Thursday night with Rich DeMarco and Coach Munkin, and I had a really good feeling coming into this game. I was excited about, that we would rebound and we would do what we needed to do to show that what potential we have. And I thought we came out in the first half and showed that. We blocked and we ran, and dare I say, we pitched the ball. And when we did pitch the ball, we had some success. We got the ball outside. We got, 13, 14 yards, had a very, very interesting start of the game. And it felt a little 2021-esque that we had some control of tempo, and we were imparting our will, and our defense was playing really, really hard. And the Troy quarterback was, he was okay. He wasn't a world beater. And I thought, this is a game that we should win pretty handily, and I felt good going into half. Would like to a few more points. I felt pretty good, and then we came out in the second half and we laid another egg. Just didn't make adjustments. They made adjustments, and couldn't seem to put anything together, and lo and behold, we lost the ball game. So, you know, it's a Jekyll and Hyde situation. Second half, we're not a second half team, and we've got to figure out a way to get ourselves back on track and come out fighting, coming out. I mean, I don't think it's a lack of effort. I just think the play calling really tightened up in the second half, and we didn't get the ball outside like we did the first half, and we got back to quarterback, fullback, quarterback, and it bit us. And so I'm interested to see how we recover with a very resurgent UConn squad that's playing inspired football for a coach that they respect and love, and that's bowl eligible. I mean, UConn are bowl eligible, not in the same sentence.
It's been a while since their Fiesta Bowl appearance.
You know, and here we are. Here we are where we're in season reclamation time. How can we reclaim the season? And then meanwhile, you know, we've got Navy playing hard against Notre Dame, and, you know, UConn winning, and, you know, who knows where we are, but we got to get our act together quickly just to put together momentum. And momentum's so huge because we'll probably talk, and Jack will probably get into it a little bit, but momentum for the 23 season, because that schedule's no cakewalk either. So we've got to have some mental momentum going in at the end of the season, going into next season, recruiting and team seniors for next year and all that stuff. So there's a possible effect that could be happening that could affect multiple years.
Well, certainly, and okay, let's go to Sam Houston, and Sam, get your comments on the game.
So it was the best of times. It was the worst of times, and they could be summed up in first half to second half, or you could take a look at things that went well in the first half versus things that didn't go so well. And it started with the opening drive. Opening drive reminded me very much of the Wake Forest game. Army came out. They opened up the playbook. They got some big chunks of yards on the ground. They got down inside the 10. And I actually thought on third down, they had picked up the first down, but the spot wasn't there. So obviously they had to go for fourth and short. And they actually ran a play that I'm a big fan of, that Army has not been running pretty much since the Kelvin Hopkins days. They actually ran the quarterback sneak, where the B-back comes up behind and gives a push. The only problem is the snap was bungled and the ball hit the turf. And so from up at the camera level or the stadium level, it looked like Tyler surged forward for the first down. And I know even Rich DeMarco made the call that he had picked up the first down, and then we realized that no, he didn't. Actually, the ball went under the pile, and next thing you know, Troy has the ball going in the other direction. So that was a costly drive. It was a lot of time expended for no points. And then later in the first half, as Steve said, the defense has really stepped up its game the past two and a half games. They've really stepped it up, and they played with a lot of heart and intensity. It's a game where if you told me Troy was only going to have 10 points, I would have said Army's going to win by 2 touchdowns at least. That wasn't what happened. But the defense forced an awesome fumble, gave Army a short field, and on the very first play, ball on the deck, Troy recovers, no points. And then on another drive, Army came up short, had to kick a field goal. And then on the touchdown that Army scored, they missed the extra point. So instead of 21-0 at halftime, which is the minimum it should have been, we were 9-0, and Troy was getting the ball to start the first half. And that opening drive of the first half, I believe, set the tone for the first half, because actually Army's defense, I believe, held Troy to what would have been a 3-and-out except for a penalty. And that gave Troy a new life on downs, and they ended up going down and scoring a field goal, I think. Or maybe they didn't score on that drive, but they went down and they They held the ball for a while and they figured out that they could finally move the ball on Army. But the mystifying, here's just what is a head scratcher. And last week I went off about it. I'm not going to do it this week. I just do not understand, other than just saying that if the playbook is working in the first half, the adjustment is to adjust to go for the jugular and open the playbook up some more and exercise all the options that are supposedly within the triple option playbook. The adjustment is not to go back to the quarterback, B back, quarterback, B back, because all that did was remove any momentum Army had on offense, because they were moving the ball well. They had almost 200 yards rushing in the first half. And I have not gone back and looked at the stats for the second half, but they did not rush for very many yards in the second half. And I honestly cannot for the life of me believe that Troy's defense made so many adjustments that they stiffened up that much that suddenly they could stop Army. Army stopped themselves. And they just let Troy creep back into the game. And then the last couple of self-inflicted wounds is, I think, the last time Army had the ball. I don't think they managed the clock very well. Neither do I think they managed the play calling very well. When they had the pass play that got them down inside the 50, they still had plenty of time left on the clock to work towards a touchdown, or to at least get closer for the field goal. But as it was, they kind of put Moretsky in a difficult situation with the length of the field goal that he had to kick, knowing full well he had already missed an extra point. And so I don't believe confidence was high inside that young man's head that he was going to nail the field goal, because missing that extra point had to have been working on him. And as a result, wide right, Troy runs the clock out, game over, 9-0 becomes 10-9 final score. Army sings first, and they go home with another L. So that's the game in a nutshell right there, folks. I don't know. Time to just realize that whatever's going on in the minds of the offensive play calling for the Army team, let me just end with this exclamation point. The past 2 games, you have scored a total of 16 points combined in 2 games. That's 8 points a game. That don't cut it.
Well, no doubt you're not going to win any games, or very many at 8 points a game. The challenge is they turn the ball over with a couple of fumbles, missing an extra point. Did anything happen on that kick that you saw that was unusual? Was there a problem with the snap or the placement?
I looked away from the TV. I don't remember what was going on. Probably was having another malt beverage being delivered to me or something at that precise moment. When I looked up, I realized Army had missed the extra point. And in the game cast, I don't remember them showing a replay of what happened on the extra point, other than just he missed it. So Steve might have seen something different than I did.
Yeah.
Well,
All looked pretty clean.
That really was, made a key difference. And then when you look at the second half, Army punts 4 times. And
let's not forget that one of those punts went for about 10 yards. Absolute disastrous shank.
Yeah. And Billy Belkey, after having a very solid game against Air Force, really had a bad punt in that situation, which hurt, and then the missed field goal when really that was a tough kick to make.
Yeah, I will say that there's a saying that in every season you'll lose a game on special teams. You'll win or lose a game on special teams. This game could fall into that category. It could, because there was some terrible special teams play, no doubt. A missed extra point, missed field goal. Honestly, the game should not have come down to a field goal when you have a 9-0 lead at first half and you have all the momentum. So I don't think that this particular game would fall into the category of you won or lost on special teams. Nah, it was a total team loss. They just lost, especially on the offense in the second half. Defense did what they had to do.
Yeah. The short punt did end up in the drive that Army got an interception that got him back on track. But yeah, just very, very little. And you look at the drives for Army. First drive in the second half, 33 yards. Second drive, -1 yard with the missed punt. 0 yards and 31 yards. They really struggled. And it's you wonder what is the difference. Steve, is there anything on the offensive line that you see that's an issue this year in terms of why they could play well in one half and less so in the second half of the game?
You know, I want to believe. I've got a tremendous amount of respect for Coach Vitti. You know, so I want to eliminate that, but we have so many mental errors. And we jump off sides, or we have motion penalties a heck of a lot. And that just lends itself to either inexperience or lack of discipline. You know, there have been some injuries and there have been some rotation of the line. To put my thumb on it, we do a lot. I mean, we do a lot of different formations. We're moving tackles over. We're trying to unbalance our lines and doing all that other stuff. And you know, should we simplify? I just don't know. It's kind of an enigma for me, Ken. I can't put my thumb on it, because when they're focused and locked in, they can block well, but then they have bonehead plays. So it's an up and down thing. So are they ready, or are they just not mentally disciplined, or they're just inexperienced, or are they thinking about too many other things, like where to shift and where to be? I don't know, and it's troubling.
Well, looking at the rushing, Tyler ran 27 times for 100 yards, but all of that was in the first half. I think he had over 100 in the first, 105. I think he lost yards
Right.
in the second. Tyson Riley ran 19 times, 66, and Jacoby Buchanan 6 times for 31. Now, one of the things that strikes me, and the announcers kind of alluded to this, that Army's running 2 fullbacks that are the size of offensive guards. And you know, just pounding one after another, and it didn't seem to be wearing the defense down. It wasn't like they were being more successful later on after taking the pounding of trying to stop the likes of Tyson Riley and Jacoby Buchanan. They seem to be able to, you know, really contain the Army fullbacks.
Well, I mean, you've got Buchanan, who's you know, 1.5 wheels.
Yeah.
And Tyson Riley, you know, he's dinged up, but also he tries to be 260, 265, but he tries to be very light-footed, and he's dancing. You'll see him dance to the outside and move laterally versus knifing up through. And generally, and he got lambasted on one play where he was dancing outside and just got, you know, slobber knockered by that linebacker that had, I think, 75 tackles in the game. So, I mean, I would like to see more north-south, more battering ram type situation instead of trying to be cute from Tyson Riley. And Buchanan, I think he's just giving us all he's got. I really do. Every play's on borrowed time.
Yeah. And, you know, Steve's got a great point. You know, Tyson Riley and Jacoby Buchanan, their running styles are very different. And we've pointed out in this huddle in previous editions, Tyson Riley, he's a stand-up runner. You know, he does not run. He runs very much like, say, he tries to run like, say, Anthony Atkins did, you know, last year, which is kind of the Eric Dickerson style, where you go through the line, but you're not lowered the shoulders. You're not running low center of gravity. You're running standing up. It gives you better vision, but it does not give you better power. The challenge, though, is that Tyson Riley is a big man, And he would better be served to lower his center of gravity and lead with his shoulder pads instead of leading with his hips and running north-south, as Steve said. And then, of course, Jacoby Buchanan, again, he's been dinged up this season. He's had a couple of negative yardage plays. He's had some fumbles in bad situations. It gets to your head a little bit. But, don't discount the fact that especially in the second half, what you've been seeing is that teams seem to key in on exactly how Army is going to slow down their offense, and they're going to do it by running between the tackles or between the guards with the B-back and the quarterback. And so what they do is they'll have 9 men in the box, and at least 5 of them are going to be from guard to guard, and they're just looking to put 3 hats on every B-back coming through the line. 2 guys are going to take out blockers. You got another guy in the gap. You're going to meet him at the line of scrimmage. And you've got the defense collapsing very quickly to the point of attack. And it's just a really difficult way to create opportunities to get a big man in space. And so that's why, like Steve was saying, when it comes to the offensive line, they seem to get really focused in on a specific assignment and not make an adjustment. And you'll see a defender running free often. And this is something that has been happening every game. You'll see the ball carrier get hit pretty much the second the quarterback meshes with him. And when you watch the replay, you see this guy was on the line of scrimmage and came through absolutely untouched. And, it really has to come down to what type of adjustments and what type of expectations are going through the mind of the offensive lineman to be able to make an adjustment on the fly. What's more important, your specific assignment, or to give the ball carrier an opportunity to gain at least a yard instead of getting hit in the backfield because you totally blew right past the guy who was in your face and about to blow the gap. So I don't know. There's so many mystifying question marks right now that it's hard to find a solution for all of them. But, with Navy looming large in a few weeks, they're going to have to sort some things out, because I think our season momentum is really going to hinge on that final game.
Well, that would make it a particularly bad season to lose to both Air Force and Navy after the success the team has had in recent years. Now, Jack McGuirk, what was your thought on the game?
Yeah, that was a tough one for Army. As Sam was saying, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It's crazy that, Troy was shut out in the first half and Army was shut out in the second half. But Tahir Tyler had a nice game, 100 yards rushing. There was one play in the game that kind of jumped out at me. Right at the end of the first half, Army had the ball deep in Troy territory, and there was a pass thrown. I think it was Tahir Tyler, I believe, threw a pass to Isaiah Alston right in the corner of the end zone. He caught it, but the ref said that it was incomplete because he was out of bounds. But then I saw the replay on TV, and he looked like he was in bounds. I thought it was a touchdown. Surprised by that, and I was surprised there wasn't a review. So that looked like that should have been a touchdown for Army on that one.
Yeah, it was a very close call. Did they review that catch?
They did not. From our end, and thank you for pointing that out, Jack. I actually had totally forgotten about that. But yes, there was no review of that. I don't know why, but the speculation we had from our vantage point was that both the refs, it appeared, threw their hats down on the ground. And that would indicate that possibly he had stepped out of bounds before he caught the pass, which would have made him an ineligible receiver. But there was no analysis done whatsoever by NFL Network on what the heck happened there, except showing the replay of him catching the ball. And when he caught the ball, he clearly caught the ball, controlled it, and had a foot down, and it should have been a touchdown. So there had to have been something extenuating that negated the touchdown, and it had to have been so compelling that Jeff Monken did not demand for a review of the play, or that the officials did not ask for a review. So that's the only solution I can come to, is it's somewhere he stepped out of bounds on his pattern and was ineligible.
Okay. Steve, that linebacker you were mentioning was Carlton Marshall, who has got 500 tackles in his now 5-year college football career. Had 22 tackles in the game, and he's the only thing I think limits him is he's 5'9", 210. So I got to think he's going to get a long look by some NFL teams.
He was a beast. I mean, he had like 20 tackles in the first half.
Yeah, no doubt about that. The one bright spot on offense got to point out was Ajon Marshall. Got 4 runs for 61 yards, got a couple of pitch plays, just what we've always been talking about. And did nicely.
So
Yeah.
frustrating, Ken. It's so frustrating to see us execute the option on the outside and say that the light bulb is coming on. It really, you're like, there it is. We're there. We got it. It's a part of our game plan. It's there. It's early. And then it just disappears. It's like we run to our safe space at the end. And it just, you yearn for it.
Hey, just looking at the defense for a second. Quinn Hammond, 7 tackles and a tackle for loss. And Camden O'Gara had 7 tackles. And Domenico had 6. Andre Carter had 4. He seemed to get more in the mix of the game on Saturday. And Jones 4. Jimmy Charlo had 4. Bo Nicholas Paul had 4. And going down the list, Kamano Bonzu had 1 tackle. So defense looked better. What do you see as far as why the defense is playing better? Are we seeing more growth in linebackers? And from looking at this, did Leo Levin play in the game at all? No.
We had 2 starters out. Two leading tacklers were out.
Yep.
So Leo, who was the other? Was out?
Broughton.
Oh, of course. Yeah, Markel Broughton out.
Mm-hmm.
But as you can see, the defense played very well, even without their captain and really their key leader on the field, Markel Broughton, out with what appears to be a concussion. And then Leo Lowen, who's been really the lead linebacker on the inside for the team, but others picking it up. And I have to say, it's Nate Woody's been doing a great job with the defense, encouraging their growth, encouraging them just overall. I think they obviously like playing for him.
Yeah. The defense is, like I said, the past 2.5 games have been the defense's best showing of the season. And my reasons for that are, 1, Nate Woody. He's a great defensive coordinator, and the players believe in him. Number 2 is the maturity of the young players that have been stepping in the starting roles, and them getting much more familiar and seasoned in running Nate Woody's system, and adjustments that have been made on the defensive side of the ball have far outpaced in the past few games any adjustments that have been made on offense. So it's good to see the defense playing as well as it's playing right now, because more than ever, if we're going to end this season on a happy note with some momentum going into 2023, a lot of this rides on the defense shoulders. But remember that part of Army's defense is supposed to be time of possession by the offense, a long grinding drives that keep opposing offenses off the field. That is part of the equation. And this is why this second half, vacation that the offense has been taking has been mystifying, because the defense can play lights out until they just get worn out. And it happened again in Troy. The offense kept going 3 and out or whatever they were doing, and which wasn't moving the ball or keeping the ball for time of possession. And Troy just kept having another crack at it. And eventually they're going to, find a crease in Army's defense and catch a player who's a little winded, and you're going to gain some yardage and get down the field and get in scoring position. And that's just what happened. So
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, Sam, to your point, if you watch the first half, and the announcers alluded to it, they talked about decreasing the number of possessions that Troy was going to have. And we were doing that masterfully. I mean, I think they may have had 4 plays in their first quarter.
Mhm.
And that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on a quarterback because they now need to score on every other series. And it tightens them up. And that's what's trademark Army football has been. And we were doing that masterfully. And we were rocking and rolling on that. And then, to answer your question, Ken, I think early in the season, and I'd been to a couple of practices, and Nate Woody was on the defense because they just were not playing good assignment football. They weren't in the right places. They weren't doing the right things. And the practices were very animated because, the players just weren't where they needed to be. And I think they found that. They were just in the right places. So they found where they needed to be, and they were following the playbook. And now they've, it's worked more towards it, whether that was inexperience or, I don't know exactly what that was on discipline and experience. You can name a number of different reasons, but I think it started to come together and they're doing it. So it's exciting to watch that happen. And I think the defensive line's maturing a little bit also. I venture to say, and I said it early on from the Coastal Carolina, and after that, I think they were out of shape a little bit early on. They really were, and they rotated a ton because they just got winded so fast and they couldn't get into a rhythm. So I think all of that is coming. The weather's cooler. They're in football shape. So I think it's coming together a little bit better for them.
Hey, one other player I want to speak to is Spencer Jones, the linebacker, the junior from Austin, Texas. Highly touted. I remember the first day of training camp in 2020, they brought him out for interviews because they expected him to be playing right away. He's had a significant number of injuries, but it's gotten that back into, this is his 4th game playing this year, and got 4 tackles. And I want to talk to Nate Woody on Wednesday when I'm at practice on what they see his game maturing into this year. And could he become a big factor on the defense this year, as you said, going into next year? Okay, let's give Richard Miller a chance to tell us about some of the games that stood out to him in college football this past week.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Some of the games that stood out to me. Number 2, the Ohio State Buckeyes, 56-14 over the Indiana Hoosiers. Indiana's 3-7. Ohio State is 10-0 as strode through for 5 touchdowns and 297 yards. Williams 147 yards rushing. The LSU Tigers, number 7, get by Arkansas 13-10. The LSU Tigers are into Arkansas Razorbacks at 500. Williams for LSU had 122 yards on 19 attempts and 1 touchdown. The number 5 Tennessee Volunteers, may they move up in the rankings? We will see 66-24. Tennessee is now 9-1, while Missouri is 4-6 on the season. Hooker for Tennessee threw for 3 touchdowns and 355 yards in the game. Also, as well, Navy is now 3-7, losing to Notre Dame 35-32. Pine for Notre Dame threw for 4 touchdowns and 269 yards in that game. Navy is 3-7. Notre Dame is 7-3. Also, as well, you have number 24 Vanderbilt losing to, number 24 Kentucky losing to Vanderbilt 24-21. Vanderbilt is 4-6, while Kentucky falls to 6-4 on the season. Number 9 Alabama 30-24 victory over number 11 Ole Miss. Both teams are 8-2 on the season. Young for the Crimson Tide had three touchdowns in the game. Threw for 3 touchdowns. Number 10 Clemson 31-16 over Louisville. Clemson is now 9-1. Louisville is now 6-4. Both quarterbacks in the game had 1 touchdown. The Tigers quarterback threw for 185 yards. Donovan threw for 175 and 1 touchdown for the Cardinals. Number 3 Michigan behind McCarthy's 128 yards, 34-3 over Nebraska. Nebraska is now 3-7. Michigan is now 10-0. Ran for 162 yards on 28 attempts. Number one, the defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs, 45-19 over Mississippi State. Bennett threw for 3 touchdowns and 289 yards. Georgia is 10-0. Mississippi State is 6-4 on the season. Also, as well, you have Oregon suffering their second loss. They were ranked number 6, 37-34 over number 25 Washington. Penix Jr. threw for 2 touchdowns and 408 yards. Nix had 280 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. Oregon's 8-2. Washington's also 8-2. The TCU is now 10-0, defeating number 18 Texas 17-10. TCU was ranked number 4. Dungan had 1 touchdown on 123 yards. Miller had 138 yards rushing on the ground in the game. Also, you have, let's see, number 8 USC defeating Colorado 55-7. USC is now 9-1. Colorado is a very bad 1-9. Williams at 268 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jones 11 carries for 74 yards in the game.
Okay, Richard, thank you. Now, Jack, why don't you tell us about Navy and Air Force?
Well, Richard alluded to it. Navy had a close one, 35-32 loss to Notre Dame. Navy had 363 yards total offense to Notre Dame's 335. Mids rushed for 255 yards. Daba Fofana led the team, rushing for 133 yards, including a 36-yard touchdown run with 2:09 left in the first quarter. Xavier Arline, the quarterback, rushed for 59 yards, had a 2-yard touchdown run with 7:49 left in the first half. Notre Dame quarterback Drew Pine, what a game he had, 4 touchdown passes, and also he had an 11-yard touchdown run as well, all 5 of those touchdowns in the first half of the game. They had a 35-13 lead at halftime. Navy scored 19 unanswered points in the second half on a 26-yard field goal by Bijan Nichols in the third quarter, 2 touchdown passes in the fourth quarter, a 23-yard touchdown pass from Xavier Arline to Mark Walker to open the quarter, and a 20-yard touchdown pass from Masai Maynor to Mikael Haywood with 1:21 left in the game. So Notre Dame was shut out in the second half by the Navy defense. But Navy, after that last touchdown, it was 35-32 score. Navy kicked an onside kick, but the Irish recovered it and knelt down to run out the clock to seal the win. Navy now 3-7, 3-4 in the AAC. They're on the road at UCF on Saturday, but that was a close one, 35-32 loss to Notre Dame. Interesting, next season, Navy opens the season against Notre Dame, and that game is actually going to be in Ireland, in Dublin.
So going back to Ireland.
One.
Where did they play the game this week? Was it at Notre Dame?
Baltimore.
No, this game was actually played at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore, home of the
okay.
Baltimore Ravens.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
And Air Force, on the other hand, they had a blowout win, 35-3 over New Mexico. Falcons had 463 yards total offense, 421 rushing. Hazik Daniels rushed for 113 yards, had a 65-yard touchdown run on the Falcons' first drive of the game. He had another rushing touchdown, 37-yard run with 30 seconds left in the third quarter. Daniels also threw a 33-yard touchdown pass to David Cormier in the third quarter. John Eldridge had a 10-yard touchdown run with 147 left in the first quarter. Fullback Brad Roberts, what a game, 163 yards rushing. He is now 4th all-time in rushing yards in Air Force football history, with Saturday also marking Brad Roberts' 17th career 100-plus yard rushing game. Air Force defense held New Mexico to just 172 yards total offense. So Air Force, they're now 7-3, 3-3 in the Mountain West. They're going to host Colorado State this weekend, and Air Force is looking really good.
Yeah, they'll beat Colorado State probably pretty handily. Does the Mountain West Conference have a championship game?
I think so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they could end up in that, and they could end up getting a fairly high-level bowl game. Are they close to being ranked, do you think? have to look up where they are in the overall Division I rankings. Maybe Jack, you could take a look at that.
Okay.
But let's go take a look at UConn, this week's opponent, on Senior Day at Mikey Stadium, and kind of looking at their stats. It's a little confusing how they can have a good record so far this year of 6-5 because they've given up virtually 100 more yards per game offense to their opponents than they've gotten. They've been giving up 393 yards to 295 of their own. And they're only passing for 106 yards a game. But when you look at their season, they lost to Utah State. They beat Central Connecticut State pretty easily. They lost to Syracuse 48-14. Then they got whipped at Michigan 59-0, which really clouds their stats. And then the next week again at North Carolina State, they lost 41-10. But then they came back. To their credit, they beat Fresno State 19-14. They beat Florida International 33-12. They lost a close game at Ball State 25-21. Then they beat Boston College 13-3, which really notes their improvement. And then they beat Massachusetts 27-10, which you might expect. And then last week, beating a very good Liberty team, Liberty 8-2. They beat Liberty 36-33, another good Sun Belt team. And so they're going to be formidable coming into Mikey Stadium. They'll probably bring some fans along with them too, which I think is good. I think it's great when you have a rivalry game from that's close by that the opposing fans can drive to and build up a great atmosphere in the stadium. What do you folks think about Connecticut from what you've seen?
Well, it's not the Connecticut of last year. And Army UConn is not the, it's not the prospect of an outcome that will mirror what happened last year at Mikey Stadium. To UConn's credit, they had their pride thumped a few times in this season. They're a rebuilding program. And they did what a well-coached team does. And that is they reached down and they smoothed out their pride and they took the right steps to correct the course of their season. And they're bowl eligible now. So, they're going to be tough. Stats say one thing. You would expect on paper that Army's offense should be able to put up a big bunch of yards on UConn. I'm a little, but the past two games of Army football offense makes you a little skeptical of that. But the fact is UConn has not forgotten what happened at Mikey Stadium last year. And they would love to return to favor. And they've got a lot of momentum right now. And they beat a really good Liberty team. Liberty was 8-1 coming into that game. And Liberty was a failed 2-point conversion away from beating Wake Forest. So, they were 1 point away from being an undefeated Liberty team that UConn thumped this past weekend. So, yeah, it's just amazing when you start a season and you look at a team on the schedule and you think that ought to be an automatic win. But what Steve and I cautioned everybody back before the season began is that just because that team was not so good last year, that doesn't indicate where they're going to be at by the time we play them this year. And UConn, great example of that. They're a team that is going to come in ready to play. They've got a great coach. They believe in their system and they've got a lot of momentum and they want some revenge on Army. So just watch out. It's going to be a tough game.
And of course, the coach of UConn is Jim Mora, who had considerable success at UCLA.
I met him, by the way, just by the fact of back in 2011, when I was a battalion commander in Iraq during Operation Dawn, we had NFL coaches came to visit my headquarters building. So you had Jim Mora and Jim Mora Jr. were there. And they were awesome. I mean, they were really great. And, they gave our battalion and autograph football and stuff like that. Gave everybody a great talk and listened to us, went out and went to the motor pool, listened to our guys, briefed them on our mission and everything. And it was just really such a professionally well done event. And the soldiers got so much out of it. And my esteem for people like Jim Mora, it just skyrocketed and it has never come down, just amazing people that are given the opportunity to lead and train our young men who are playing football. And I'll tell you, it is such a blessing for the players of University of Connecticut to be able to have a person of that character leading their team.
And also the coach of the Atlanta Falcons had several successful seasons there. And so he brings in, obviously, when you bring in somebody that knows exactly how to run an organization, knows how to lead people, you can get, you see results quickly. And that's what we've seen with UConn. And hopefully this builds up their program so that they are become a competitor again. They were always the team that got left out of the ACC expansion when Boston College and Syracuse and Pitt joined the ACC. They were kind of the team still standing when the music stopped. And let's see what their future is. They decided they went into the Big East for basketball, and that seems to be working there. And they still have to see if they can find a home for football. Do you see anything in realignment that would bring Connecticut into a conference? I'm sure Massachusetts would like to join a conference just as well.
It's hard to say. UMass, I don't think has. They have probably a little bit of a tougher road to follow, because I mean I could see them join a conference like a Sun Belt conference, but not, although they're misplaced for that. But maybe they end up in the American Conference. But UConn, I could see popping into one of the bigger conferences, especially the way that they're showing now. But I think under the covers with the UConn team, I mean, this is a direct result of the transfer portal. I mean, if you look at their squad, they've got, somebody from Michigan State, they've got somebody from Colorado, they've got somebody from where does this guy come from here? Missouri. You got SEC teams, you've got Big Ten teams, they're all, they've left and gone to UConn to play, and they're playing their first year there. So they bumped up pretty quickly. Their outside linebackers, 6'3", 242 pounds. He played at Kentucky. So, I mean, they've bolstered their roster pretty quickly with transfer portal guys to help themselves out. They're pretty big out front. They run an odd defense, nose tackle right on the center, a couple defensive tackles. So it's going to be a lot of what we saw last week with Troy. And they're a little bit bigger than Troy. I think they're probably a little bit more athletic, although Troy had a really good defense.
Yeah. What does it mean if you have two tackles and one is playing over the center?
Well, you have two defensive tackles and you have one over the nose. It's a pretty standard odd defense. You have odd and even. Even is like a 4-4 or 4-2 defense, where you're going to have generally defensive tackles over the guards. The center will be left uncovered, and then you'll have bigger defensive ends and then linebackers behind them. Whereas this is 3 defensive linemen, nose guard, 2 tackles. Generally, the nose is either on the center or shaded on the center, and then the defensive tackles are 5 techniques out on the tackles with the guards uncovered, and there'd be linebackers on each of the guards with 2 outside linebackers. So you're almost a 3-4 versus a 4-3 as you hear in the pros.
Okay. Very good. Well, certainly Jim Mora has attracted some good players to play for the Huskies, who we will see at Mikey Stadium on Saturday. Now, Jack, who do Air Force and Navy have this week? I know you said Colorado State for Air Force.
That's right. And Navy is on the road at UCF on Saturday.
Oh, that'll be another tough opponent for them.
Mhm.
And the ACC is proving to be a very tough league for Navy.
Mm.
Okay, Richard, what else? What are some pick 5 big games in college football this upcoming week?
Okay, so some of the 5 big games. Oh, by the way, you were wondering where Air Force was ranked in the football standings in the Mountain Conference. They are ranked number 4. They are ranked number 4. Conference 3-3, 7-3
Okay.
overall. Now,
Okay.
as far as in fact the huge games, 4 huge games over the weekend in college football. Let's see, as we get up to week 13, let's see, a couple of games. Well, of course, we've got, no, maybe I should go okay, top 25. Oh boy, okay, now it's up there. Let's see, we've got oh yeah, Georgia and Georgia Tech. Good old fashioned hate. 12 noon Eastern this Saturday. And then and maybe the biggest rival, probably one of the biggest rivalries in the history of college or professional sports. The Michigan Wolverines are taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes, number 3 against number 2, 12 o'clock start.
Richard, I think you're a week ahead.
Yeah, I think so.
Wait,
I think that's
yeah.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
A little early
Thank
there.
you. You're right. You're right. As far as the games for this weekend, number 5 Tennessee travels to South Carolina. There'll be a 7 o'clock start. Also, you've got USC number 8 taking on number 12 UCLA, 8 o'clock start. Number 6 Oregon will be taking on Utah, number 13, a 10:30 game. Number 7 LSU will be taking on UAB, a 9 o'clock game. Number 1, the Georgia Bulldogs will be taking on the number 24 Kentucky Wildcats. 3:30 also. Number 2 Ohio State will be taking on Maryland at 3:30. And also you've got number 18 Texas taking on Kansas also at 3:30.
Okay, very good, Richard. Thank you. I just was checking the RPIs, which ranks all 120 some odd teams in Division I, and Air Force is coming in at number 56, excuse me. 57 is UTSA, we have seen, and Missouri is 59. Just some others. Liberty is 68, Troy is 69, Arizona State 70. So some good teams in that area. Syracuse is ranked 46th, Tulane 44th. So some group of 5 teams have moved up into really in the top 50. Wake is 35, Cincinnati 34, UCLA 30. So they still have Air Force still has a ways to go towards reaching the top 25, but they should get a good bowl game this season. Okay, time for our lightning round and go through what we think will happen when Army and UConn play at Michie Stadium on Saturday. And before we get into that, I want to say something. I saw a picture on Twitter that the Brigade Review circulated, a picture of Michie Stadium with a baseball game being played in it, circa 1927. And it's sort of the answer to the question I've always had about why they didn't build permanent stands on the east side of Michie Stadium. The stands that are there today were built, I understand, in the 1960s. But they were playing a baseball game at Michie Stadium, and that was right field in 1927. And they also circulated a picture of a design for Michie Stadium that might have been placed down on the riverfront, and would have been a fully enclosed stadium with really all Gothic West Point architecture on the outside. Perhaps the dream of General MacArthur when he was superintendent. Steve or Sam, have you ever seen those pictures?
Yeah, I've seen them, and number one, as far as baseball being played at Mikey Stadium, it begs the question if in plebe knowledge they used to have to ask how many baseballs in Lusk Reservoir. There had to have been an answer to that.
Well, exactly that. I mean, it would have been the outfield, right field fence.
So then, as far as the stadium down on the river, well, it's probably, you know what, it's a good thing that that's not where Mikey Stadium ended up. And for one, you would have had a good view in one direction, and that would have been of the Hudson River, and that would have been about it. And you got the train tracks running right by there. And how do I know all this? Because, well, Shea Stadium is down there where the 150s play, the sprint team. And it's prone to flood. It stinks sometimes from the sewage plant, depending on which way the wind is blowing. And Steve knows all about that too. So it's just not a great location for a stadium. Mikey Stadium is exactly where it needed to be. But I just, tongue in cheek, now I'm actually wondering how many baseballs are in Lusk Reservoir. There must be a few.
Well, I'd read some of the books where they said that General MacArthur had this dream of a 70,000 seat stadium. And
Right.
then what they ended up building was basically about a 20,000 seat stadium that was open on the east side so they could play baseball.
Well, I mean, heck, they can't fill a 38,000 seat stadium right now. So probably a good thing that Douglas didn't get his way.
Well, the other thing is they were playing most of their football games, the big games, at the Polo Grounds. And then they would play, obviously, Notre Dame at Yankee Stadium. So the big games, they moved to New York City once they got to be a big draw. So anyway, I just was fascinated to see that picture. I mean, I'll see if I can get the link and put it on the attachments to this in the comment section. Okay, let's go. Let's start with Jack. What do you think is going to happen, Army and UConn, Saturday at Mikey Stadium?
Well, first of all, it's going to be a pretty emotional day, senior day. And the seniors are going to be introduced on the field with their parents. So it's going to be a pretty emotional day there. But as far as football goes, UConn looks improved, but I think Army has that home field advantage. If you look up at their matchup history, they've had 7 games against each other, 4 at Mikey Stadium, 2 in Hartford, Connecticut. 1 was actually at Yankee Stadium. And the 2 actually that were in Hartford, UConn won both of those. So definite home field advantage for Army this time. I think it's going to be a 28-14 win for Army.
Okay, I was at the game at Yankee Stadium, a very exciting win for Army. I like it when they play 1 game a year at Yankee Stadium. I thought that worked out well as far as bringing some attention to the team in New York City area. No, but unfortunately, it just didn't draw as well as if you play the same game at Mikey Stadium. Okay, so we got 28-14 for Jack. Let's see, Richard, why don't you go next?
I'm gonna sign for an Army win. I'm gonna go 28-17.
Okay, so you see one more field goal. I think they have a good kicker at UConn. Okay, and Steve Shalou, would you like to try next?
Yeah, I'm going to say that we win 15-13.
15-13. Now, should I ask how they're going to get to 15 points?
Oh my.
How are we going to get to 15 points?
5 field goals.
Oh boy.
Okay, I think Brent Morensky is going to come back and
It's got to be a low-scoring affair. I think it could be 2 touchdowns, missed extra points, and a field goal. I don't know, but it's going to be low-scoring, and we'll see where we are on that. It's going to be a beautiful day. It's going to be a beautiful football day, sunny, crisp. It'll be fun to watch. Hopefully, again, if we can get the ball outside and we can do some good things, it'll be a good game for us.
I'm looking forward to exactly that. Okay, Sam Houston, what do you think, Army and UConn at Mikey Stadium?
Several things that seem to line themselves up in Army's favor for this game. One, as it was already mentioned, it's senior day. Number two, it's the last home game for Army this season. And number three, I cannot see Army losing 3 games in a row. In light of the way with which they have allowed games to get out of control, that they had the lead at halftime. So that being said, it ain't going to be last year's Army UConn game, that's for sure. It's going to be way closer, probably be a nail biter down to the end of the fourth quarter, unfortunately. So we're going to be sweating bullets, but in the end, I believe that Army's going to get the win for senior day. They're going to get the win to renew a winning streak at Mikey Stadium to help build momentum for the home season next year. And they're going to win by a close score, but I think it's going to be 2017 Army.
20-17, okay.
And if Army wins this game on Saturday, it will actually be career win number 100 for Jeff Monken as a college football head coach.
Yeah, he's been trying for that for three weeks now. So I think he will be. He'll just be happy to get the win.
Mm-hmm.
I think Army's got to get preparing for. This is kind of like a 3-game set with getting set for the Navy game this week and the next Thanksgiving Saturday against Massachusetts, and then the bye week before playing Navy. So it's like 2 weeks of preparing. And there's no better way to prepare than to break this losing skid and get a win in front of the crowd at Mikey Stadium. There's going to be lots of people there. I think you could have a lot of UConn fans coming out to visit West Point and take in the game. And we hope there are a lot of Army fans there coming out to support this team. And certainly with Senior Day, Senior Day for Tyler and Jamel Jones and Andre Carter and Connor Bishop and so many others seniors on this Army team that have seen a lot of success. Certainly part of the team that beat Missouri last year in the bowl game, and the team that won the Commander-in-Chief Trophy in 2020 with the remarkable back-to-back wins over Navy and Air Force at Mikey Stadium. So I'm sure this group wants to go out successfully and get set for the Navy game. I think the offense is going to get a couple of touchdowns, maybe 3. They're going to get the rushing game going. Maybe get a pass play or 2 in. I think Brett Morensky is going to get a chance to make a field goal. So I'll give Army 24, and I think I'm going to go for 24-17. I think UConn's going to get a few points. They don't pass the ball very much, but they do rush it pretty well. So 24-17 I will sign up for. And so again, that'll wrap it up for tonight. And we'll look forward to seeing several of you out at Mikey Stadium on Saturday. It will be a cool, crisp fall day. A lot of leaves still turning on the mountainsides there, so it should be a good one. So any final thoughts? Steve, you look like
one final thought from me is just this. I just wanted to give a shout out to the Spread Football Nation. I know this past yesterday, our Army played Navy for the CSFL championship and they played in Annapolis. It was a hard fought game. I know that it didn't end the way we had hoped. Navy scored a late touchdown and ended up taking the championship game away, and earlier had taken a star. Those were the Sprint team's only 2 losses this season. And the fact that it was Navy, I know it hurts so much more, but all that being said, I just want to say that Mark West and his team, they are absolutely the best possible leadership for the sprint team now. They have been. The things that they've done for the program are absolutely incredible. And for those of you players, I feel for the firsties, but for all of you players who are on the team or who will be on the team, let me tell you, you are in the right hands at the right time. And take this as an opportunity to go in and build an even better team next year under Mark's leadership and be ready to take the star in the championship, because I know you're going to do it.
Okay. Prep for Navy next year starts the day after this year's game. Steve, you had a thought in your mind, I could tell.
Just, to bounce off what Richard Miller was talking about, we got a couple of really, really interesting matchups this weekend to keep an eye on. I will tell you that TCU continues down the road to a bid into the top 4 teams, much to the disappointment, I'm sure, of the committee. And Alabama's been a little bit of disappointment. I still revel in the fact that Texas A&M keeps losing, even though they had all that nil money and the most 5-star recruits, saying that there's a chance for everybody else out there. And then I like UCLA, USC being relevant again. And I'm excited about seeing them both, two top 15 teams banging it out together as the days of old. And then there's going to be a huge disappointment for Oregon. They were being talked about being the number 3 or 4 seed, possibly the way that they were playing. They laid an egg last weekend and lost their chances at anything postseason wise that would be game changing. So those are interesting coming up. I'm excited to see those games.
Okay. Very good. Well, thank you all. And thanks to Richard Miller for calling in from Florida. And
Thank
thanks
you.
to Jack McGuirk for calling in from Pelham. And thanks to Steve Shalou calling in from South Jersey. And thanks to Colonel Sam Houston calling in from the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama. And so Saturday, 12 noon, Parade of Cadets at 9 a.m. And also a couple of big wrestling matches at West Point. Thursday night, West Point will have a wrestling match against Iowa. And then they have their own invitational on Sunday with 10 teams playing. We're going to have a talk with the wrestling coach later this week on all that Army of Power and wrestling. And so 2 opportunities to see Division I wrestling right at West Point on Thursday and Sunday this week. Okay, well, that wraps it up. Thank everybody, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you on Saturday. It's Ken Kraetzer for CaMMVetsMedia. We cover cadets, midshipmen, the military, and veterans proudly since 2008. Have a good evening.